Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome everyone to the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive event. I would like to recognize that for those of us from Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, we're located in the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq. My name is Jackie Gahagan. I'm a professor of health promotion in the Faculty of Health at Dalhousie University and the lead on the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Project. I'm grateful to be able to live, work, and play on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq as a genderqueer settler researcher and as a faculty member at Dalhousie University. I'm pleased to welcome you all to the launch event in recognition of the fact that October is LGBT History Month. By way of introduction, I want to note that the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive was initially funded through the Nova Scotia Department of Seniors, and since that time, we've been able to raise some additional funding through Dal, which Laurie will speak to later on in the session, as well as through the Donna in this session. Clearly, an event like this and the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive requires a team approach in moving this from idea to reality. And I'm enormously grateful to our team and others who have supported this project over the last 1.5 years. I would like to acknowledge our Community Advisory Committee members and our research assistants on this project. Their contributions are incredibly vital to the success of this project. By way of background, the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive stems from conversations with community members about the need to preserve our histories. The purpose of this collaborative project is of the various contributions made by diverse populations of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender senior Nova Scotians. This project is in keeping with SHIFT, which is Nova Scotia's action plan for an aging population, in that it will build capacity among older adults and the broader community to connect and coalesce in the development of an archive aimed at raising awareness and appreciation of the various contributions diverse members of our older LGBT communities have made across Nova Scotia. This province-wide project will provide a platform to both increase social interaction and community involvement among older populations, and will also create a living legacy through a collaborative development of an open, accessible archive that can be used by community members, seniors, older and younger generations of LGBT populations, researchers, and students, among others. In collaboration with a variety of community-based organizations such as the Elderberries, the Nova Scotia Rainbow Action Project, Pride Health, as well as institutions such as Dalhousie University, the Nova Scotia Public Libraries, the Department of Seniors, among others, this intergenerational project brings together older and younger LGBT populations along with various allies and supporters from the community with the intention of developing a sustainable Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive. I would now like to pass it over to Lydia Hunsberger, who is a white femme lesbian originally from Elmira, Ontario, who moved to Halifax to pursue a BFA at NASCED University. Continuing her education at Dalhousie's MLIS program, she pursued interest in collections, development, community. Lydia has worked as an archives assistant at Dalhousie University Archives, a research assistant in the School of Public Administration, and an archives assistant with the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive. Lydia currently lives in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and will be pursuing expertise.
Thank you for that introduction, Jackie. So my name is Lydia Hunsberger, and I am an archives assistant with the LGBT Seniors Archive. So I've been on this project since May 2019, so just over a year. And my main role is processing and description. So I'm going to go over my role with the archives and then also some helpful hints on how to search our collections now that they are finally live, which is very exciting. It's been a really long time coming. So this is a big day for everybody on the team and also for researchers and people in the community who will now have access to these materials and will be able to search and find archival materials for personal interest and for academic research and all sorts of other projects and pursuits. So Dan will be going over donating next, but processing is what happens after donation. So donations come in all sorts of different forms. Sometimes they come in very neat little boxes, and sometimes they come in very messy boxes, and sometimes they come in bags. It can depend on how many hands the donations have transferred since the organization has been defunct, how long the organization has been defunct for, what the records management was like while the organization was active. And this also varies a lot when you're getting people's personal records because everybody has a different way of organizing their materials. So processing can be a pretty big task. So processing is really just a way of gaining intellectual control over the materials and really seeing what the collection consists of. It's a way of determining archival value and also the intrinsic value of the materials that we receive. And when we're looking at these materials, we're assessing it to see what the importance of the material was to the organization or to the donor, and also the historical significance and the part that it plays in representing that history. Another role of processing is eliminating duplicates. So sometimes, especially where an organization has been defunct and the records have gone to multiple people, we can receive a lot of donations with duplicate materials. So we don't want to keep lots of copies of something, we just want to keep one or two. So processing helps eliminate all those duplicates and make the collection much more succinct. We're also looking for non-archival material. So that's anything that's not related to the collection mandate of this project and other unrelated materials. Processing also helps us flag things for digitization. So we digitize currently, we're only digitizing delicate and unstable materials. So this would be something like newsprint because newsprint is very acidic and it can damage other materials. So we want to digitize it and then dispose of the originals because it's a very acidic and harmful thing to keep in your collection. Other things that we've digitized include large posters and banners because they are a bit more fragile. And we can also digitize in case we don't want people handling things a lot, in case they're fragile or very large. After everything has been processed, it's rehoused and assigned a unique identifier. So I am going to ask Jess to bring up my slides here. Wonderful, thank you. And I'm going to talk a bit about searching our holdings. So to search our collection, and I'll be putting all these links in the chat after my presentation here, but you want to go to the Finding Aids website and you want to type in MS15 in quotation marks and hit the magnifying glass. The quotation marks are important because this really limits your search. If you forget them and hit enter, you can come up with a lot of unrelated searches. So make sure you're using the quotation marks and using the magnifying glass when you're searching. When you want to refine your search, you can, so MS15 is the identifier for every item in the LGBT Seniors Archive collection. So when you search this identifier, you will be pulling up all of the records that have been processed to date. On the left-hand side, you will be able to narrow your search results, and you can see that you're able to refine them by the different collections that they're a part of or by creator. And you're also able to use advanced search options. So if you're familiar with searching library catalogs and doing research, this is very similar. If you're not, I will also be providing links to helpful tutorials to help you learn how to search. But with the Boolean search, you can add in another term and you can use keyword searching. And you can also limit by date at the end there. And just make sure you're hitting the search button instead of reset. The reset's red, so it looks like you should hit it, but if you do that, your form will clear and you'll need to start over. Another way that you can browse our collection is browsing by subject. And so this is located on the main page, just under the search bar. So when you want to browse by subject, a subject is a particular topic, and we've used a variety of subject terms for the LGBT collection. Some of the key terms we've used are LGBTQ, Pride celebrations, AIDS, leather, women's rights, women's history, and sexual orientation. When you go into the subject searching, you can search within that to find any of these subject terms. Some other not LGBT specific subject terms could include religion. You can, when you click on subject on the browse by, you'll be able to see a list of all the subject terms. There's a lot of them, but these are just some that you might want to use. So here are some links that I will be putting into the chat that will help you develop your searching skills and become a more effective searcher. And I'm going to show you some highlights from our collection. So we've gotten a lot of buttons and pins. These vary from activism buttons and buttons from marches. We have buttons from Pride events, from conferences, and from a lot of different things. We have these really big posters. The images don't quite do them justice. These are about 4 by 6 feet. And they are cyanotype. So what that means is they are printed on newsprint using a solution and created from an acetate negative. So the cyanotype solution is put onto the paper and the acetate negative is put on top, and then it is exposed to UV and rinsed. And then the areas that were exposed are purple or white, sorry, and the areas that were not exposed are kind of this purple black. So these are very unstable. You can see even in the middle one here, they're very discolored. So they're posing a bit of a preservation challenge. So this is an example of something that we had to digitize. And another thing that's posed a little bit of a challenge for us are these banners and flags. So a lot of these are paint on some sort of fabric or marker on fabric, which is not something that we have a lot of in our collection. And again, these are very large. The largest one we have is over 5 feet wide and 23 feet long. So it's huge. So it also poses a storage concern as well as a preservation concern. And here's some other materials that we have. We've received a number of paintings, again, more pins, and also we've received, this is a good example of duplicate materials. On the left here, we've received about 20 of these Pride Not Prejudice posters, which were displayed in buses above the seats as an advertisement for the 1996 Pride. And thank you, Jess, for those slides. They can be taken away now. Wonderful, thank you. So I will be posting those links in the chat, as I said, and I will be passing it back to Jackie now to introduce Dan.
Great, thank you very much, Lydia. Thank you for all of your amazing contributions to the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive, and I have to say we will miss you terribly, but we'll certainly be picking your brains as this project continues to unfold. I'd like to now pass it over to Dan McKay, who is a part-time research assistant on the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive and has been instrumental in working with our Community Advisory Committee and others from the senior LGBT communities in Nova Scotia to help identify individuals who have archival material they would like to contribute to the archive. Dan is very happy to be on the team officially doing the history work that he's been doing informally for most of his life. Dan, over to you.
Hi, yeah, it's been an exciting year. We've collected material from about a little under 20 community leaders. There's lots more to do. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Several of the collections that we got are from people who have passed on, people that gave their materials to someone else to say, when there's an archive, please contribute this to it. That's very interesting work. We have a few over 21 people who are ready to contribute and get their materials to us. And we have about 40 people on our list to contact who might or might not have materials. That list of 40 continuously grows, and our next project is to do a road trip to Cape Breton, where we're going to start properly documenting LGBT queer activist activity up there. We have a fantastic team of people on this project. We have about 50 people who help out or have helped out in a whole variety of ways in making decisions and actually chipping in and doing physical volunteer work. We have people doing oral history, so we've got quite a team on our hands. If you have materials to contribute, or if you know someone who does, just Google LGBT Nova Scotia Archives, or go to dal.ca/LGBT-archives, and you'll get to a page there that will give you a contact address. And contact me, and we'll guide you through the process. It's very easy. It's not onerous. It won't take a lot of your time. Don't bother to wait to organizing your materials before you give them to us. For a number of reasons, we prefer to get them before you organize them. So if you have materials, contact us. And some people choose to put us in their will instead of doing it right up. That's okay too. We'd prefer to get them directly from you while you can tell us stories about the materials. And we are collecting stories, lots of stories. So there's a whole whack of video and audio that goes with these materials, which is exciting. Future researchers are going to have lots of stuff to look at from our time. Some of the things that we've gotten. This is an underdocumented organization called CARIS, Churchgoers Assembled to Respond to AIDS in Halifax. These people got together very shortly after the first few people died of AIDS in the mid-80s, and they were initially the very first couple of meetings. If you look at the archival materials, you notice they're called Catholics Assembled to Respond to AIDS, and then in the material you see the word Catholics crossed out, and you'll see the word churchgoers written in, and then a couple of meetings later it's printed Churchgoers Assembled. So we can see that there was some evolution there. We've got this beautiful documentation for the evolution. CARIS also created Morton House, which was a hospice. And we have complete documentation from one end of the Morton House. We have the photo that the real estate agent took of the Morton House before CARIS bought it. And we have invoices from an invoice from a carpenter for replacing a hinge on a door, just like complete paperwork, all the books. If and when someone's ready to write the story about this organization, we got stuff. Lydia mentioned the beautiful paintings. I'm looking forward to having some high-res scans of those so that we can share them and more people can see them. We have one amazing one, which you saw Lydia scrolling through, done by a priest artist in kind of Christian icon style, and that piece is called Breaking Free into the Light, and it's got there's a real story inside the painting. The most exciting thing for me probably is this set of rehearsal tapes from a women's political activism singing group called the Secret Furies. I didn't think that there was any audio from the Secret Furies extant anywhere, and someone found a box of these tapes in her basement, and I'm really excited about giving people access to that. We have photos. We have tens of thousands of photos. Most of them don't have captions. Some of them do. We're trying to caption the best of them. we have a complete history of this organization called the Gay Line, which was created in 1972 and ran for almost 30 years, I think. So we've got training materials, resource materials, member lists, and the organization kept a kind of diary. Every volunteer would write a note in the diary at the end of their shift. People typically worked a 2-hour shift, and we have all of those diaries. Really super exciting. One of the very first gay plays in Canada in 1978 was called The Night They Raided Trucks, and we have rehearsal video, we have music, I think we've got a script, we've got amazing content from that. The author, the playwright for that has gone on to become quite a famous Canadian playwright, so it's really, and he's been extremely cooperative on that. The weirdest thing that we have, I think, is it's a leather scented thing that hangs from your car's rear view mirror. So, you know, normally those would be like pine scented, but it's in the shape. It's printed as a leather flag, and it's scented with leather, and it came out of its package. It was in a cellophane package, and the package disintegrated, I would guess, 10 or 15 years ago, but it still faintly smells like leather and musk. So that's pretty exciting. We've got one of the other really great resources is we now have materials to put these duplicate materials that Lydia was telling you about. We don't throw those away. We put those aside, and then someone who's doing some kind of a display or an art show or an LGBT History Month exhibit, those things are available for people to borrow, right? Because if they get lost or if they get damaged, it's okay because they're duplicates. So, for instance, those bus posters go in them. We have hundreds, possibly thousands, not hundreds of duplicate buttons, and those are really great. People like to look at those. We have several runs of Waves magazine. So lots of stuff that can be immediately put to use for displays. Again, if you have materials that you contribute, and so the kind of materials that people contribute, very often they think that they're going to be either photographs or pieces of paper, the 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. But keep your mind open, contribute posters, and we have t-shirts, we have audio tapes. I'm sure that at some point we're going to get videotapes. I am sure of it. We don't have any at the moment, but they're going to come in. Any other media that's relevant to the Q community in Nova Scotia, we will take and we will figure out a way to preserve it in the long run. And Lydia didn't talk much about the physical setup for our archives, but it's an absolutely perfect formal archives with climate control and access control. And so whatever materials you give us are going to be very safe there. Materials that have value, the university is also contributing. It will also do a charitable receipt for that, and several people have gotten those, have been extremely happy with them. So coming up soon, we're going to have a couple of videos. The first one is from Ross Boutlier, so if we can cue that up, that would be great. So I'm looking forward to working with more and more people as time goes on and keeping up our list. And this is a project that really never quite goes away. It just keeps going on. If we have the Boutlier, we have the Ross's video ready. We're going to do that, and then we'll queue up another video from someone else. Ross has been an activist in Halifax since the early 80s. He was involved in Pride in the early 80s and later on with Waves magazine. He had lots and lots and lots of boxes of stuff. all very carefully saved in rough totes. And he also contributed that painting by Bruce Pellegrin, and I think he's talking somewhat about that painting in this video. So sure, let's roll the video whenever you're ready.
Creative expression, artistic expression in response to oppression is a very commonly found in the stories of liberation. And the creative expression is both reflects an individual's struggle for self-acceptance and for expressing hoped outcomes or futures, as well as expressing the struggles with the larger world. The painting in question, I think, captures a dream of freedom from the bonds of oppression around sexual orientation, but specifically in the Christian context. So it's specific to the gay male experience. It does present the question of what other forms of expression there are for other corners of the LGBTQ plus community that we have not found or recognized or added to the story. And I'm pretty sure it's out there.
Very good. Thank you, Ross. Nice piece. And our next piece is by our next video is from Anita Martinez. Anita has been ubiquitous in the community with her camera since the late 70s. And she has been delighted about this project ever since she heard the very first of it, because she loves the idea of her photographic work going to some future use. There are, I think, tens of thousands of photographs in Anita's collection. In here, in this video, she's talking about one particular set of albums that for her has a particular significance. So please roll that up. Thank you.
And I will be donating all of this stuff. But to take back the night marches in the 80s, that used to happen once a year with a lot, not just the LGBT people, but they started it. When I posted this picture, a number of people that were involved way back when responded and said, please start posting again. Because it's absolutely vital that we know that we did, and maybe we will again, start protesting and start marching and for our rights, because we're going to lose them if we don't. It's vital that we keep those memories alive and
Awesome.
And know that it happened. So it's I mean, I think this is the best thing that's happened in this area in a long, long time.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Anita. And don't stop taking pictures. We got because there's still lots of stuff going on and still lots of events to capture. We are going to move on to our next speaker from Dalhousie, and I think Jackie is going to introduce her. Jackie, if you're ready to roll, we'll flip over to you.
Great, thanks very much, Dan, for that. That was a really lovely sort of foray into a very complex and important collection that we have, and thank you very much for all the work that you've done in the community and collecting those materials and bringing them to be part of the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive. It's now my pleasure to pass it over to Laurie Ward, who is Director of Development at Dalhousie University and is responsible for supporting donors in a number of faculties and areas across the university, including our libraries and archive. Laurie is happy to support the Nova Scotia LGBT Seniors Archive and welcomes the opportunity to work with people interested in this important project. So over to you, please, Laurie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Jackie. And I want to start by actually thanking all of those individuals who have already supported this project through their donations of materials and their financial donations. And I'm now here just to let you know how you may also contribute to this project. Could I have the next slide, please? As Dan had mentioned, the archive is located in Dalhousie, and Dalhousie is a Canadian registered charity. So we are very fortunate to be able to offer charitable receipts for those that wish to make a gift to the archive. And I've got a URL up right here that will take you directly to a giving page where you can give online. For those that would like to give by mail or elsewise, I'll bring up the next slide, and you can contact me directly. Dan also had mentioned that we are able to give receipts as well for gifts of materials if those have value and will be able to be assessed. So please contact either myself, we've got my phone number or my email, or our archivist up, Michael Moosberger, and we'd be happy to also talk to you about those donations and how we can assess them and ideally make sure that we recognize the value of those gifts. So thank you so much for all your help, and I look forward to speaking with you. Back to you, Jackie.
Great, thank you so much, Laurie, for that sort of walk through how people can contribute. Very grateful to you for that. It's now my pleasure to pass it over to Donna Bourne-Tyson, who came to Dalhousie University to lead the Dal Libraries in 2011. As Dean of Libraries, Donna is responsible for meeting the needs of Dal Library users, working with a team of 130 librarians, archivists, and staff dedicated to user-centered service delivery. Donna, over to you.
Thanks, Jackie. First, I'd like to take a few moments to thank Jackie for being the driving force and the visionary behind this wonderful initiative, and Lydia and Daniel for their hard work setting everything up and getting the word out. Thanks as well to Marla McKay, our communications coordinator for the Dal Libraries. And we couldn't be hosting this event today without the support of James Wilson, our AV coordinator, and our volunteer producers, Poppy and Jessica. Great job. Thanks to the LGBT Seniors Archive Advisory Committee and all of the community volunteers who have contributed their time and precious mementos, which we will treasure and keep safe in the Dalhousie Libraries University Archives. This is a collection of which we can all be very proud. For the Dal Libraries, our Associate Dean for Archives, Special Collections and Records Management, Michael Moosberger, already mentioned by Laurie, has been taking the lead, and I am grateful for his support and that of our exceptional archives team. This is the first true collaboration between the Dalhousie Archives and a community archive. Usually we receive a donation of materials and we take it from there, but in this case, we're actively working with the community to create a firm footing for the archive. Our commitment to the LGBT Seniors Archive is to provide curation and preservation services that follow national and international standards, which Lydia discussed earlier. If items are accessioned and described to archival standards using appropriate information management systems and classification schemes, then all of these unique and fascinating items in the collection can be discovered by people around the world. And in the case of the items we've been able to digitize, not only are they discoverable, but they can be viewed from anywhere. It is especially important during the pandemic to digitize materials, not only for long-term preservation, but also to provide maximum access to items while people aren't able to come and see us in person. We commit to preserving these items in physical or digital format for as long as archival methods will allow, certainly for decades and hopefully for centuries into the future. As Dan mentioned, the Dalhousie Archives is a secure, locked facility in the Killam Library. It is monitored for humidity and temperature, with dedicated and highly skilled staff. Our systems and servers are backed up in several offsite locations to ensure the content in the archives is well protected. It is an honor to be entrusted with the stewardship of this valuable collection, and we in the Dal Libraries look forward to sharing it with the community here in Nova Scotia and around the world. Back to you, Jackie.
Great. Thank you very much, Donna, for that, and thank you for your leadership in championing this this important archive. We're very grateful for your support for this collection. We're now going to move into our question and answer session, and we would kindly ask that you direct your question to a specific speaker. We do have one question queued up, which I believe Dan is ready to answer. I'll read it. I love making Wikipedia pages, and primary sources like archival material are a big help to gathering information. What piece of the NS LGBT info would you like to see on a wiki for your archive, and what would be a good source for that? Dan, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, encyclopedia pages are a topic near and dear to my heart. So this is a fantastic thing. I have a big list. Nicole, we need to talk. I have a big list of things that that could get encyclopedia pages for, but these tapes that we got from the Secret Furies are currently the most exciting thing for me, and so there's good work to be done there, and the who, what, when, why, and how of that would be really great. When did this group form? Why did they form it? What concerts did they perform? Where did they rehearse? Who were the directors? Who were the members? All of those. So the Secret Furies vocal group. That's probably the most exciting thing that we have in the collection. We have a lot of things that were also, have been documented more or less. I'm wondering, Lydia, if while going through the materials, if there's anything that stuck out to you that made you think, you know what, that's a really juicy subject. People should know more about that. Is there anything that stuck out for you?
Yeah, so I think I haven't searched Wikipedia a lot for LGBT things in Halifax, but I can't imagine there's a lot. So we do have a lot of stuff from organizations such as GALA and LGRNS, which is Lesbian and Gay Rights Nova Scotia and Gay and Lesbian Association. And those collections are both processed, so you would be able to access those by contacting the archive staff, and they'd be able to provide you with a digital copy of some things, or perhaps once restrictions ease a little bit, maybe the reading room will be a little bit more accessible. That's kind of a gray area right now. But yeah, I think that organizations like GALA and LGRNS would be an amazing start for some Wikipedia pages to document queer history in Halifax and Nova Scotia.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, I mean, having been a member of the community, not since the beginning, is that I have an immense amount of pride that, just a couple of years after Stonewall, sometime in 1971, people got together and said, hey, we need to do something, we need to act, we need to change the world, and to do that, we need to organize, let's get on it. And by 1972, there was a full-fledged organization registered with an address and regular meetings and this help phone line, that's a thing that Nova Scotia can be proud of, that we were not lagging behind the rest of the world when it came to LGBT activism.
Dan, we have a question here, and this is again both for you and Lydia, but we'll cue you up first, Dan, if you want to respond to this, which is some concerns may have been expressed about privacy or fear of outing others through donation. So did you want to speak to that and how you feel the archive is able to handle that concern?
Sure. Yeah, with any archives, you have the same concern. Things are, people are, the material is more sensitive even now than, regular, ordinary, non-LGBT material. So we're totally sensitive to that. When someone donates material, we ask them, they specify what the access to that material is, and we honor their requests. That permission is rescindable. So if they change their mind later, we can go back and say, this material won't be, for instance, this material won't be published on the internet until some date, or this material is only available the text of this material, say, is only available for looking at in person. That kind of thing. In short, we deal with special requests about privacy on an absolutely routine basis.
Great, thank you for that, Dan. Lydia, did you have anything you wanted to answer or add to that answer, rather, about donated materials? Particularly, you talked about photographs that had been donated and the concern about others in those photographs who may not be out or may not wish to be out. Any comments on that?
Yeah, so with photographs, if somebody was to see themselves in a photograph, they could contact the Dalhousie Archives at any time, and we would take that photograph down if it is digitized. As of right now, digitizing photographs is not something that we are doing because of the volume of donations, so it's really hard to keep up with the volume of donations and also have time to digitize everything. But yeah, if something were to come up like that, at any point, the donor or somebody in those photographs could contact the Dalhousie Archives and take them down. Another thing is that not everybody in the photographs is always identified, so we don't always have names for people in the photograph. It is a tricky area, but as Dan sort of stated as well, in the donor agreement, which is a legally binding document, you can outline access restrictions. So you can say, I don't want these made accessible for 10 years, for 50 years, for however long. So that could give a little bit of extra comfort, I guess, to a donor if they had privacy concerns, is that you can put an access restriction on your materials, and that is a legally binding clause.
Great, thank you for that, Lydia. I wonder if, Dan, you could speak to the rural versus urban piece of this. So I know you've done a lot of sleuthing around the province looking for people outside of HRM, for example, and I wonder if you could describe a little bit about that process. And so folks who are outside of HRM, how they might want to get in touch with you or contribute to the archive.
Yeah, well, there's a number of networks all around the province. What I typically do is for each area is get a hold of someone who has been active in that area and ask them, say, Yarmouth or Truro or Amherst or a couple areas in Cape Breton or Bridgewater. There have been small organizations on and off all around the province, and say who was involved and where are their materials now, and then just chase them down. So it's a standard process of just networking and working with people and keeping track of people who've said, oh, you should talk to. You should talk to Jane Smith. She organized that conference back in 1978. I'll bet she still gets some of the materials. And you put Jane Smith on the list, and some days or weeks or months later, you give her a call.
Great, thanks for that, Dan. The other component to this is, in addition to people donating archival materials such as photo albums, buttons, posters, etc., is also the opportunity to provide an oral history. And I wonder if you and Lydia would like to describe that process of also providing an oral history.
Sure, I'll go first, and Lydia can add the pieces that I've I've forgotten. We're kind of collecting oral histories in two ways. The first is when we collect the materials, we go through them with the donor, if at all possible, and get them to tell stories about the more interesting pieces. So we have audio of the collection process. In some cases, we have video of going through photo albums and the person talking about the photos that they took 40 years previously. That's a fantastic trip. The other element is that we're doing absolutely classic oral histories with people who were active in the community, and those involve a more or less professional historian sitting down with a recorder and doing an interview over a course of a couple hours, 3 hours, or however long it takes, with a subject and getting them to tell their story. You never know where those oral histories are going to go, but they're always interesting, because that's the job of the oral historian, is to find the interesting story.
Great, thanks for that. Lydia, your thoughts on the oral history component?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting component of the project, because I think there's a lot of stories out there that aren't documented in any sort of material or ephemeral way. So having an oral history is a really excellent way of documenting a history that otherwise would be lost. So the oral histories that we are working on recording are going to be accessible on our finding aid at some point in the future. We currently do not have any processed. So they will be available as a collection, and we will have all of our oral histories listed under the oral history collection within the project. And this is a really fantastic resource for researchers and people in the community who want to learn more and want to hear a firsthand account. It's a really valuable resource.
That's great, thank you for that. One other question or comment that we've had from people is, why are we not including archival materials or oral histories from younger folks? And just as a gentle reminder, and then I'll turn it over to you, Dan and Lydia, to provide your thoughts on this. And just to remind folks that the initial funding for this was from the Nova Scotia Department of Seniors, and the sort of ask to Department of Seniors was to ensure that we have the opportunity to collect these histories, both oral histories and material histories, and have them included in the archive as a kind of legacy, if you will, of their contributions to LGBT history in Nova Scotia, which is not to say that younger generations can't do that. But right now, it would seem that we have a lot of folks willing to donate both materials as well as oral histories from the older community. And so for the duration of this part of the program, or project rather, we're going to be focusing on those who are sort of 55 years of age and older, those folks who fit in the baby boomer cohort. But thoughts on down the track, perhaps broadening this to include other generations of LGBT and folks from
I can tackle part of that. For all of this work, we kind of do triage, because we can't do everything at once, and if you think about the beginnings of our community in the late 60s and early 70s, these were people who were in their 20s, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That was 50 years ago, and if you do the math, we're getting to the point where these people are going to become unavailable to be diplomatic, or they're going to be downsizing. Very often, when someone will have lived in a home for decades, and then moves to an apartment someplace on one floor because they've got bad knees or hips, and all that junk paperwork all that junk paper and those boxes in the basement, they get chucked out because sometimes it happens in a hurry. So we have a certain urgency for the older members of the community. We're also not being particular sticklers for age. So if someone who's 25 comes to us with a chunk of history stuff and says, please, this needs a home, this is important, Q history for the province, we absolutely will not say no. And if someone's got a story to tell, I'll bring it on. There's nothing I like better than recording stories and making them available to people. That's been my life's work. Lydia, do you have any thoughts about kind of an age range?
Yeah, I think that in the future, especially if this project was to receive more funding going forward, that would be a really excellent way to expand upon the project as it is now, because the funding now does really limit the scope, especially with the grant that we're on. I think this is actually a really good segue into this other question that's posted in the chat here. Jackie, if you want to read that one out.
Sure, yeah. So this is a question, and I think Donna Bourne-Tyson might also want to chime in, but we'll go kind of in order, Dan, Lydia, and then Donna if Donna wants to add to this. So the question is, how will the Nova Scotia queer community maintain some sort of ownership and access to the archives? That's part one of the question. This is really important that for community archives, that the community has control and ownership. Once everything is collected and cataloged, how will the archives work with the community? So let's start with Dan, and then we'll go to Lydia, and if Donna wants to chime in, we'll ask her to come up third and offer her thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to answer as the non-professional archivist on the team. My understanding is, and this is my understanding is that the archives at Dalhousie are a public archives. It's not a vault that gets closed and no one gets to see it. These are public archives, and my understanding is that these materials are going to be available to the public in a controlled access manner, right? So you know, they're secure in perpetuity at Dal. Lydia, does that sound more or less like a correct representation of reality?
Yeah, so you don't need to be a student and you don't need to be affiliated with Dal in any way to access the archives there. Things are a little bit different right now due to COVID, but as I mentioned before, you can always email the archive staff if you want to access some materials there. I think that another way we're really trying to work with the community right now is through our community advisory committee. And we're always looking for new volunteers and new members for our community advisory committee. And this is a really integral part of the project because they really do act as advisors. They bring us concerns and feedback, and they're really the voice for the community on this project. And that's a really integral part. Another way that we're doing this is making sure that the project stays queer-led. So we're hiring LGBT folks to work on this project. We're hiring within the community. I think it is really tricky with community archives because as an archivist, I don't think that community archives and traditional archives are very compatible all the time. So it can take a lot of creativity and reimagining of what an archive can look like to really make it a community institution instead of an organizational institution, if that makes sense. So it's definitely a big work in progress. But yeah, I think the community advisory committee and making sure that the project stays queer-led and trying to get that funding is a really crucial part of this project.
Great, thank you, Lydia. Donna, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that one?
Well, you can tell that we've been working closely with Dan and Lydia for the last more than a year at this point, and what they've said is wonderful. We're here to enable access and ensure preservation, and really what is done with the content then is up to the community. And you know, we're just the enabler behind the scenes, and we're open.
Great, thank you for that, Donna. We're almost out of time, but I did want to say, just as a kind of concluding comment from Dan and Lydia as our RA folks on this project, thoughts going forward? What are your hopes, wishes, dreams, so that next year for our follow-up event, which would be in keeping with October, which is LGBT History Month, any thoughts, hopes, dreams that you'd like to see us be able to share with folks next year?
For me, I'm looking forward to this archive being used. I'm looking forward to some researcher coming along and saying, I want to tell the story of fill in the blank, what do you got? And for us to be able to say, we've got this and this and this and this, and here's how you get access to it. That's exciting. I'm really excited about the oral histories that we've got queued up to do, because I know that those are going to be fantastic stories that are going to be worth preserving literally forever. These are going to be stories that people will be listening to 100 and 500 years from now. Lydia?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this archive goes and how big this collection gets. That's very exciting. I think that if I had a dream for the archive, it would be amazing to find a more secure source of funding, because I do think that that's a huge barrier to where our project is right now. Yeah, and I hope that we're able to find a way, even if there are funding issues going forward, to keep the Community Advisory Committee involved and ensure that it is still a very community-oriented project, and that it doesn't just disappear and become underused. I really want people to know that this is here for them and that they should be using it and taking full advantage of these resources. And I really hope that we start to get more donations and more diverse donations going forward.
Great, thank you very much, Lydia and Dan, for those concluding comments. We are now going to wrap up. So by way of kind of closing this session, I'd like to thank our partners, our funders, our contributors, including the Elderberries, NSRAP, our Community Advisory Committee members, the Halifax Public Libraries, the Nova Scotia Department of Seniors, as well as Donna Bourne-Tyson, Michael Moosberger, Laurie Ward, and our fabulous research assistants on this project, Lydia Hunsberger and Dan McKay. Big thanks to Marlo, James, Poppy, and Jessica for their behind-the-scenes work in preparing and producing this event. And finally, a heartfelt thanks to those of you who have or are planning to donate archival materials or funding to this important project. Thank you for your time and thank you for your interest. Take care, everybody.